I love you. Seems a very simple thing to say, doesn't it? Especially when all you feel for someone is love, when all you can think about is how much you love them. So, how is it so difficult to say when it needs to be said? We were together for 5 years. She lived on the south coast and I lived in London. We had actually been to the same school. I was 2 years above her. We had no contact there, apart from once. We walked past each other and made eye contact. That moment always stayed with me. So when we met years later at a friend's wedding, I followed her round drunkenly all day, thinking she has got to come home with me. I can't let this opportunity go. This is fate. I don't know what she was thinking about me. Maybe that I was a bit annoying. Why won't this guy leave me alone, she was probably thinking. Still, she had a lot to drink, and when it was time to go home, she'd missed all the public transport and didn't know what to do. She tried to get a lift with some friends, but there seemed to be a bit of a joke about the two of us ending up together, and they all said they had no space. So, we were standing alone in the middle of the night on a deserted Kensington High Street. I only lived a few blocks away. She didn't have much choice, and being extremely drunk, she was probably very glad to have anywhere to go. We had sex, drunkenly, with all the passion and vigour of two elephant seals after 3 bottles of Chardonnay and God knows how much champagne. In the morning I walked her to the station. I held her hand as if we were in a relationship. She looked awkward and hungover, but she didn't pull away. I said, "I'll see you next weekend," as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I clung to this dream, to this ideal that since we made eye contact at school that day, there was an invisible cord between us, drawing us back into each other's lives. There was no doubt in my mind that we would be together. Our relationship continued to be bound together principally by alcohol, following the example of our first night together. I would take the train down to her on a Friday, drinking all the way, or she would to me, drinking all the way. There was a smoking carriage in those days, and the train to or from London on a Friday had a sort of a party atmosphere. Drinking, smoking cigarettes, chatting to complete strangers as if they were old friends. By the time I stepped down from the train and into the cool sea air, I was always pretty pissed. And then we went to the pub. Sundays involved an afternoon in the pub, trying to stave off the inevitable hangover, trying to ignore the long journey home and the horrendous Monday morning in the office. Still, we kept it going for 5 years, until we both realised that neither of us wanted to spend our entire lives either drunk or hungover. Sober, we were awkward, but neither of us had the courage to call it off, so we had reached this situation of, where do we go now? What do we do to make this relationship mean something? She got pregnant. It was kind of planned. Not very well planned. I guess the clock was ticking for both of us. She moved in with me, and then moved out 2 weeks later. She said she knew it wasn't going to work. She didn't want to be in a relationship. She took all of the things which she had just moved into my house. Everything. There was no trace of her. I guess I was in denial. I didn't accept that she was leaving me. To me, she was going through a difficult pregnancy. She'd come round. She realised our baby needed us both. I went to visit her every weekend when she moved in with family in South London. I was there at the birth. I saw my son every weekend. We did things together like a normal family, as though nothing had happened. Except there was no physical affection between us. After 2 years, I saw her diary on the table when she was putting James to bed. I opened it and read that she had started seeing someone else. It was like having a blindfold wrenched off, leaving my face bloody and torn, but being able to see we weren't going to get back together. I had been living a fantasy all of my own, while she had been politely tolerating me for James's sake. I couldn't face her after that, nor even to see James. I couldn't cope with my own complete misreading of that whole time. I became withdrawn. I wouldn't see anyone. I remained in my flat and hid whenever friends or family came round. She even came round once, with James. I just sat on the floor with my back against the door, crying silently. It was a year later when I saw her again. She was on her own in the park. We'd both been walking and were looking down at our phones and almost collided, but stopped just in time. In that moment, our eyes met and we just froze, caught up in the web of our past. And I simply said, "Why?" And she said, "I didn't think you loved me. You never said." I thought back to all those times with her and James when I thought everything was going to be okay, even before that, when she moved out. And I saw her face, looking into mine again and again, searching for something. She had been searching for my love for her, and I hadn't had the courage to say, "I love you." Seeing all those moments thrown into my mind's eye like a pack of cards, I just froze. Several minutes must have passed, because when I looked around for her, she'd gone.